from Luke chapter 7, and it's verses 1 to 10. When Jesus had finished saying all this to the people who were listening, he entered Capernaum. There a centurion's servant, whom his master valued highly, was ill and about to die. The centurion heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. When they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him. "This man deserves to have you do this, because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue." So Jesus went with him. He was not far from the house when the centurion sent friends to say to him, "Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. That is why I do not even consider myself worthy to come to you. But say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him. And turning to the crowd following him, he said, "I tell you, I have not found such great faith even in Israel." Then the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well. Jesus was amazed at him. There are lots of times in the Bible when people are amazed by Jesus. From the very first day when he opened the scriptures in the synagogue in his hometown of Nazareth, they were struck by the authority with which he was able to engage in God's word. And then there were the miracles. He walked on water. He calmed a storm. He fed more than 5,000 people with next to nothing. He healed all kinds of illnesses. And he blessed countless people. They were amazed at his composure as he stood trial, his righteousness as he was sentenced to death, his self-giving on the cross. They were amazed when the tomb was empty, when they saw him raised to life, when he ascended to be with his Father. You know, and I think when we pick up the gospel story, we read these things and we can be amazed in so many ways in which Jesus interacted with people. And if we dip into our own experience of Jesus, we can all pinpoint times when we've been amazed by him. The times perhaps when we experienced a profound sense of peace because he was with us. When what had looked like a completely hopeless situation was resolved in a way that we could never have come up with, but which Jesus worked out for us. When just the correct balance of people have surrounded us to give us help and support when we've needed it. when we've seen the joy that we've experienced in Jesus reflected in the eyes of other people. I'm sure that we could all talk about how amazing Jesus is, how amazing he has been to each one of us. But what if Jesus was to be amazed by us? What if Jesus was amazed by you or amazed by me? There are 2 times in the New Testament that states that Jesus is amazed. The first time we've alluded to briefly, it's in Mark chapter 6, where Jesus is preaching in the synagogue in his hometown of Nazareth. They recognized there that something out of the ordinary was playing out before them, was happening before their eyes. But they had their cynical ears and critical lips on, and they weren't open to the wonder of what God was doing. Where did this man get these things? They said. What's this wisdom that's been given to him? What are these remarkable miracles he's performing? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? On this occasion, Jesus' amazement is one of sadness. He has so much to offer, so much love to give them, and they're holding back. Jesus said on that occasion, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own town, among his relatives, and in his own home." He was not able to do any miracles there, except lay his hands on a few people who were ill and heal them. Jesus was amazed at their lack of faith. I think we can understand Christ's amazement that these things should be happening and nobody was giving them the presents they deserved. But how often have we done the same thing? How often have we refused to see what God is doing in and among us because we're blinded by our own prejudice? How often may we have stood in the way of God's blessing? But let's not dwell too long there at the moment. Let's look again at the passage in Luke chapter 7, where Jesus is amazed in a really positive way. As this incident opens, Jesus has left Nazareth and has made his base in Capernaum. As he enters the town, he's approached by some of the elders of the Jews. Often, these encounters between Jesus and the Jewish establishment can be quite tense. But this one is particularly agreeable. They don't seem to be there with a view to baiting him, but they're humbly asking for his help. Not on their own behalf or for one of their own. They come for a centurion's servant who is critically ill. A centurion, a man with significant influence in the army that has oppressed their nation, the army that occupies their town, a man with different life experience to them, different set of religious beliefs. Have they come because they've been coerced? It seems very unlikely. It seems that they have come because there is something about this man that makes them want to help him. He's a man of standing in their community. He has captured their respect. They plead earnestly with Jesus, saying, "This man deserves to have you do this for him because he loves our nation and he has built our synagogue." They've looked outside their own religious circle and they've responded warmly to this foreigner who clearly loves their nation, who has gifted them the synagogue, even if he himself is unable to worship there. This is a man who is interested in the well-being of the town he's been posted to. He's sympathetic to the culture and the religious heritage and in good standing with the locals. And he's done this while maintaining friendships within his own culture. It's not easy to straddle two camps, as it were, but this man has moved from his own place in the Roman army to be well loved within the town that has been occupied by them and still maintains friendships from his original circle. So we find that as Jesus is on the way to the home of the centurion's friends are sent out to intercept him, and they've been given a script. "Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. That is why I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you." This pillar of the community, esteemed by so many right across the board, is putting out a very clear message as to where he considers Jesus stands in the pecking order. And it's right up there. The centurion is a leader. He has a responsible position. He has access to considerable wealth. All the attributes that in civic society accrue respect. Yet he did not consider himself to be worthy to come to Jesus. It's not that he's uncomfortable with who he is or the position that he holds. He recognizes that he's answerable to the Roman command and he presides over others. In verse 8 he says, "I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. But say the word, and my servant will be healed." You know, the centurion expected his commands to be heeded. He was a very powerful man, but he was also realistic. Healing wasn't really something that he was in a position to command. The Roman army was a very finely tuned killing machine. And while he had no doubt seen that, it hadn't defined him. He was a man of compassion, and he came to Jesus that his servant might be healed. It's interesting that he draws this parallel between being two men who are under authority. The structure for the centurion was clear. He had commanders above him and others below him. Could it be that he recognized that Jesus' authority was out of the ordinary, that Jesus' authority came from God? Jesus would later say in John 5, "Very truly I say to you, the Son can do nothing by himself. He can do only what he sees his Father doing, because whatever the Father does, the Son also. Whatever the Father does, the Son also does." Could it be that he had recognized that Jesus' authority came from God? That Jesus need only say the word and a miracle could happen. The servant could be healed. Could this be part of why Jesus was amazed? Because he realized just who he was and where his authority came from. You know, I think that culturally, we would find it very difficult to hear those words. Jesus is amazed by us. I think we find it quite hard to accept compliments. We think that it can be difficult to accept that other people see good in us, that Jesus sees good in us. We readily latch on to the times where Jesus may be disappointed in us, amazed at our lack of faith. In bringing these two incidents together, I wonder which resonated most closely with how you feel Jesus views you. Do you see Jesus as somebody who's expressing his disappointment in you? Or do you see Jesus as someone who lavishes his love on you, who loves you so much, who created you, who has a relationship that he's actually amazed by everything that you do because he loves you so much? You know, there were a lot of people involved in that miracle in Capernaum. A lot of people who cared about the centurion's servant enough to take his need to Jesus. People who witnessed or heard about the restoration of the servant. People who actually were able to interact with Jesus and talk to him face to face. The centurion never actually met him. A lot of these people, it would seem, didn't soak in the blessing that was among them. They didn't pick up the vision of what Jesus was doing, they didn't come on board. They'd seen him at work, but they didn't expect it to make much difference to them. They had witnessed it, but they didn't come on board. Whether it was by a sense of not feeling that they could, or whether they were just complacent. And later on, Jesus does express his disappointment again in Matthew 11. And you, Capernaum, will you be exalted to heaven? No, you will be brought down to Hades. For if the deeds of power done in you had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until that day. You know, thinking that Jesus looks on us with disappointment may be our default position, but it's not Christ's. Christ came to offer us forgiveness, to enable us to let go of the ways in which we may have disappointed him. He has come because he loves us, because he wants us to know the depth of that relationship, to know the joy that comes with following us. Jesus wants to bless us. He wants to look on us with amazement. In fact, he does. But are we holding back? Are we so conditioned to thinking that Jesus may be disappointed in us, that we can't move forward and embrace the joy of truly following him? Jesus wants us to know him, to think about him, to be astounded by him, to enjoy the wonder of his blessing. In Capernaum, the centurion was a very unlikely role model. But what he did was he cast himself on Jesus, on his mercy. He recognized his lordship, his authority to heal a servant, a broken life, a broken world. And when we do that, when we come to Jesus, amazing things happen. We discover that Christ has the power to save, to redeem us from sin, to show us immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine. Christ will ignite in us faith,